Hey everyone, how you all doing? Welcome back to another Monday HockeyBuzzcast. As the playoffs are heating up, we're going to get into a lot of stuff here. I guess Russ is going to start us off with something to say.
Yeah, today, again, you wouldn't know this and nobody would. Today is the Major League Baseball trading deadline.
No, I've been following this, yeah.
Okay, and it's until 4 o'clock today, and obviously it's usually at a different time of the year. This is a little strange because they're not even what are they 35 games into this season?
Yeah,
but it's here, and
yeah,
one of the biggest names traded was Mike Clevenger, a pitcher for the Cleveland Indians. What got him traded was the way he handled himself in the COVID situation. He was the guy that didn't tell his team until afterwards. And he is one of their best pitchers, and he did get traded. And this is probably, Mike, I would say this is all Terry Francona is doing, saying that he won't come out and say it, but clearly he was so upset that the player didn't divulge that information that even if he's one of their best pitchers, he didn't care.
Yeah, and I think that's a contributing factor, but I also think that the Cleveland Indians have virtually destroyed that franchise over the last couple of years. There was talk about them trading Lindor last year, and I'll bet you anything it happens in the next year or so before he becomes a free agent. But they've traded Kluber, they've traded Clevenger, they've traded Trevor Bauer. I mean, it wasn't the Yankees, it wasn't the Astros, but they were close. They were in the mix.
Yeah.
And now they're not. Now they've stripped it bare, and now it'll be another 4 or 5 years before Cleveland starts to contend again.
What's interesting is also the Padres are loading up, and teams that load up to the degree that the Padres are loading up, a lot of times don't win it. I know the Marlins did back in the day with Wayne Huizenga. They did it a couple of times, but who was it? Was it Kansas City a couple of years ago that loaded up, or Arizona? Somebody like that did, and it didn't do anything for them.
Well, I attribute what the Padres are doing right now to the stupidity of what Columbus Blue Jackets did last year. You're selling off a bunch of future players that have controllable years for short-term fixes to win a World Series, just as the Blue Jackets traded for Duchesne, traded for Dzingel,
right?
Went for just to make the playoffs. They were till my dying day. No matter if Ak argues with me or Kevin Allen, I will say it was dumb of Jarmo Kekalainen to sell future to just get in the playoffs and win a round. What did that prove? Now this year they won a round. They lost in the first round after beating Toronto. Some of the players that they traded to get Duchesne and Dzingel may have helped them. Or some of the draft picks may have helped them to get players who you'll never know. But I think in the end that was a stupid move.
Yeah, I mean it's always debatable. We'll see what happens with this deadline. Your team, the Yankees, mine, the Mets. They haven't done anything yet, but we have until 4 o'clock, so there's a few hours left.
Yeah. I wish one of the things I did back in the day is I had like baseballbuzz.com and soccerbuzz.com.
Oh yeah, I remember you said you had that.
I did. I got rid of some of them, but I was hoping definitely to do that someday. I've never found the perfect right person for that. You'd have, because obviously, I don't have contacts in those sports at all.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. Here we go. Got lots to get into today. Hey, Hockey World, it's Monday, August 31st, the final day of August, I would guess, usually. 2020.
I don't know if there's an August 32nd. I'm Michael Lagello.
Not yet, but in 2020, anything's possible. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Mac. You're watching Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we got to get to. We have a bunch of series now that are at 3-1. And I know, Mike, you had sent out something I thought was interesting, which is that John Shannon had said something yesterday, which echoes what I had said earlier on. But go ahead, talk.
Right, and John Shannon tweeted out last night after the Vegas Vancouver game. He says, "Okay, you have now 4 series at 3-1. These players have been in the bubble for over a month.
Yep.
How is that going to affect them in terms of?" Now, I don't think everybody. I mean, Russ and I were talking about this before the show. I don't know if it'll mean everybody, but there could be a player or two who are just saying, "We're not coming back from 3-1. We're sick of being in the bubble. Let's get the hell out of here." and they take their foot off the gas pedal. And that could be the difference. One or two players doing that could be the difference between a team extending the series or them going home.
I actually, while I agree with John that this is possible, I actually thought it felt more like that when I talked to people in the bubble. It felt more like that early in the bubble. Like when some of the teams that really just didn't think they had a great chance of winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, so the unknown, like they're like, well, why am I even here?
Right, but now you're the final 8. At the final 8 point, winning this round, I mean, if you can come back and win 3 games in a row here, or 2 games in a row or whatever, no, 3 games in a row these teams have to do. If you win 3 games in a row, you're in the conference finals. I mean, that's a lot bigger pill. Like that. There comes a point at which you've been in the bubble so long, you don't want to feel like you were there for nothing. And I think I think there's a balancing act here.
There is a balance, but don't you feel like there's human nature going on here? Like there is for sure players not playing as well in the bubble that you would expect to play better under other circumstances, and you can see it on their faces, like they're almost lost. Like whether these players feed off the crowd, whether these players don't like to break routine, and breaking this routine broke them. But you do see a difference.
It is true. There are definitely players who definitely feed off the crowd more, and other players. I mean, the Dallas Stars whole team situation has been fascinating to watch. How that's playing out. The Islanders, who have battled, with like, their home fans, being there or being in Brooklyn and all this craziness.
Right.
When you take that element out of things, it seems like, they don't have to take the, subway to Brooklyn every day on game day or whatever.
Yeah.
It really seems to be helping them a lot, obviously. I don't know. I mean, and I also, the funny thing is, like, I just wonder, like, some guys with like big playoff beards, now you also see this, like, like the Flyers have that one, like the Giroux, Couturier, and it's they're giant playoff beards, that, and you just see them all the time, like going like this as their play as when they're on the bench, like
that just tells you they're not around their wives. But other than that, I'm not sure.
They're not their wives, but also it just
you think it affects their aerodynamics?
Not their aerodynamics, but just concentration. Like if your beard is constantly bothering you.
It didn't seem to bother Joe Thornton when he was in the Stanley Cup.
I guess it doesn't. I mean, I guess it doesn't. But to me, it would make me insane. Like there's no way I would do it.
Too. I wouldn't want it that big. But
there's just no way I would do it.
I don't think it's an issue. But
I also think we're seeing a big, I mean, I noticed this is a general overview is we're seeing a huge, what's the word to use? Impact, I guess, impact by what happened here? I'm sorry, my computer just went nuts. But a huge impact from like puck moving defensemen more than usual. And I think what's happening is you're also seeing this giant, like Huskinen obviously having this enormous playoff. I felt like Provorov last night was like stepping it up almost to like match him. I felt like there was like Provorov felt like some competitiveness with Heiskanen. Like I'm another young defenseman.
Yeah, I think Provorov actually, to be fair, I think he is trying to step up because his partner Matt Niskanen is sucking for wind. He ran out of gas in that game.
Yeah, he big time ran out of gas in that game. And the Islanders, their conditioning and the way they play. I mean, quite simply, you have to work as hard as you possibly can to compete against them.
So let's start with
that series to start with.
There was a player, and I don't know who gave the quote that said, "Hey, we're breaking our ass out there. We're trying as hard as they can." That's great, but it's not working.
It's also not something you really, I mean, you should say. I mean, obviously, that's how you have to play in the playoffs to get anywhere. I mean, this is
right.
The Islanders aren't inventing like hard work. That's not like something that's being invented. I mean, the reality is they're outworking the Flyers. Quite clearly, they're outworking the Flyers. And in many, in all zones of the ice, they're outworking the Flyers.
If you think about it, if you're a coach, right? If I was a coach and I was going to coach against the Flyers, I'd be like, guys, the first 5 minutes, we just have to weather it. The Flyers are going to come out like gangbusters. After that, the game will settle in, and then we'll take over with our speed and hard work. We'll keep dumping it in the corners. We'll control the puck, and we'll come out of this with the win. And really, AV has not given anything. Now, I will grant you, I don't think he can do much more other than just have the right guys in. But I felt like he's made too many changes. As an example, James Van Riemsdyk doesn't have a point. There is no reason to play him. I don't care if he looked good on the third line that almost scored goals. They didn't score goals. I would rather have a mucker in there like Connor Bunneman because he's at least strong. He will get to the net. He might make something happen accidentally by the net, but he's going to win corner battles. I would rather have that right now than the promise of, hey, this guy might score because he hasn't scored. He doesn't even have a point.
Well,
in the entire playoffs.
The problem here, Russ, is that nobody else is scoring. So the promise of him scoring is enough to keep him in the lineup. If Giroux and Voracek and Couturier were scoring regularly, Konechny was healthy, then they would have this spare offense that they may not need, and they could sit Van Riemsdyk for a workman-like player. But because they can't throw a rock into the ocean right now, they need to put Van Riemsdyk out there to possibly generate some offense.
Yeah, it is strange. It doesn't seem like, I mean, for them to be as far as they are right now without those guys doing anything is just phenomenal. It's astonishing, honestly. And I mean, they really, when you watch the game on game 3, so Saturday night's game, I mean, they came out like gangbusters. The first part of the game, like you saying, Russ, I mean, the first period I thought was maybe their best period in the series so far. It had like they were absolutely matching the work ethic. The big thing the Islanders do that so well is their is the defensive rotation. The defense being part of the forecheck. That's the Islanders are doing that really well. The Flyers started doing that back at them, and it worked because it worked against them.
One thing that was stark for me, because I follow this guy a lot, Adam Pelech. When he starts shooting the puck because he feels like there's space on the ice, so he might as well just fire one. You're playing a bad game against that team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. I mean, the defense on the Islanders are winning this in a lot of ways. I mean, the defenders, in my opinion, are their ability to keep the puck in the zone, their ability to just tire the Flyers out, their ability to play the puck quickly out of their own zone. I mean, there's a bunch of the whole idea of it. The Islanders are just the better team, flat out, right now. And
they are. I thought the Flyers had some better pieces, so maybe they'd edge them out. But again, I said it in 7, and right now it doesn't look like it's going to go 7. It could, but I doubt it.
Well, if you take Konechny and Giroux out of the equation, which you have to, then that changes, right? I mean,
right. Well, to me, that's the bigger equation here. And I brought it up during the year, and I'm going to bring it up again. You can't go next year with both those guys on the team, because the problem is with Giroux especially, even though if you want to say, hey, he's had a couple of good shifts and you're looking for these glimpses, he still only has 5 points and no goals. That's not good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're standing around like they used to with Peter Forsberg, waiting for something to happen. And if Forsberg didn't do it, all of a sudden nothing was happening. And when you've got these two guys that still dominate your top 6, you've got to break that up, because chemistry-wise, it's over. They're aging. They're not the same players. Voracek clearly has more left as far as an offense player. Giroux clearly has more left as a defensive player and could be a very good player. But you've got to trade one of them now, because otherwise you are going to be saddled with both of them. And there's no guarantee where the Flyers are going to be next year. Like, there's a lot of issues on their roster, and I would want to move one of them out. I know everybody says move JVR out. Yeah, but he's got a salary that is even harder to move out than Giroux. Voracek, you'd have to pay for some for sure, but at least he had a better year. But I can't come back with those same guys. I can't.
I don't know how you move out those contracts. I don't know how you move out Giroux.
No, they're all really.
Giroux, I go right to Ottawa and say, what's it going to take to get Claude Giroux here?
Yeah.
And they would love it. He would love it in some regard, and maybe not, because he's not going to. He might say, hey, we can be a cup contender in a couple of years. They love him out there. But I think there's value monetarily to the Senators to have Claude Giroux out there, jersey-wise, and when they get fans back.
But that would require Eugene Melnyk to spend money, which he doesn't want to do.
Might spend money to get a guy like that, though, because it is such a draw. I mean, the aspect he's got to sell tickets.
Be a huge draw for them.
He's got to sell tickets. Ottawa isn't a guaranteed ticket sale, right? So that's.
I mean, the only advantage there is Giroux next year makes 7.2, and the final year makes 5, so it's less than the cap hit. So there'll be a money savings there. If you're taking back like a Marian Gaborik salary dump, but that's on LTIR or something.
I think they would expect more than that. But the idea is Ottawa's got a lot of picks. You certainly could get some picks and at least a roster player. I think you can get that.
Jan, what do you think of this series so far, Islanders and Flyers?
I mean, from what we've seen, it's what we expected, right? The Islanders, if you think about it, are almost like an octopus or a constrictor, right? They keep tightening and tightening and tightening. They just don't give you any room and space. Yep. And then, as Zach said, they're mildly like the Devils in '95, right? They counterattack really quickly, right? And the thing we talked about early on was, would they get that secondary scoring? to go along with the top line. And we've seen Bouvier play well. We've seen Bailey. We've seen Lee had a really good series in front defensively. And then it doesn't matter which goalie you seem to put in net. Yeah. They both just seem to play the same, right? I mean, Greiss was very good yesterday. Really I don't know if he's at the Varlamov level, but both of them have played very well. I mean, Philly took a 1-0 lead and would seem to have the advantage, and the Islanders just kept reeling them in and reeling them in and reeling them in and got them to play their style of play, which in essence is we're going to put you into bad areas of the ice. We're going to put you along the boards. We're not going to give you any room and space in the middle. If you do, we're going to block the shots, and as soon as we do, we're going to counterattack. And so I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday. It's like, if Tampa wins, and let's say Tampa does win, and we'll talk a lot more about this, do they need Stamkos to get past the Islanders the next round? Or do they need a healthy McDonough for that transition play to come out of their own zone? Right. Yeah. And I have friends of mine who are literally Ranger fans who are jumping off the bridge going, oh my God, it's like the worst thing ever if the Islanders win. I mean, Russ saw it on Twitter already. It's they'll get have more cups than the Rangers do if they win. Who cares? I mean, seriously? Oh my God, we lost the number one. I don't care about having the number one pick. Really? Find your priorities, guys. Yeah. Really? I'm a Ranger fan. The Islanders have more cups than we do in the modern era. I mean, it's a state of fact. But look, I think Philly is in a whole heap of trouble. Maybe they carve out another win. Maybe. I would be shocked if they got it to beyond that. I just think the Islanders are hitting on all cylinders right now, and Trotz has them playing that system to an absolute perfection and getting the scoring they need from the other sources that we didn't know whether or not was going to be the case when the series began.
And it's going beyond talk. I know AV, like today, piled on more pressure for the veterans, like, hey, it's an opportunity for that. You know, it doesn't even matter what he says anymore. It really is about results at this point. And just putting more on those guys who are not performing doesn't mean they're all going to magically perform. Like yesterday, I thought it was great that they put Oscar Lindblom in there for the skate, right? Yeah. But if AV really felt like that was going to fire the team up enough to solve the problems of the team, he was sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I agree. You're trying to get emotion going. They're doing everything they can. They're obviously pulling as hard as they can to get emotion going. But there's probably like a little bit of a lack of emotion they're feeling. Like, you know, on the inside, like it's hard to tell, but they're probably feeling a bit of bubble malaise and a bit of how hard it is to beat the Islanders. Like you really have to work your tail off to beat them. And even when they got a 3-goal lead on them, they just barely survived it. I mean, this series could be over right now.
I don't agree with this statement because in the back-to-back, I don't think Elliott was at fault with the loss.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean,
he was good in the beginning of the game. I mean,
you know what? I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I look at it in this way. You played Elliott. You took the heat off of Hart. There's no way when you're playing a back-to-back game was Hart going to shut out the Islanders. But maybe after a day off, he might, and that might win you a game. And so I think you had to play Elliott. I felt like I said that a week ago. I was going to play Elliott in this game because I just felt like if the Islanders were going to continue to do this to the Flyers, which they are, it was good to give him a day away from that so he could see on the bench what's going on and come up with a new game plan, because he has to come up with a new game plan too.
Right. Oh yeah, he does, and you know, and I think, you know, you saw the battle of backup against backup last night. Greiss was really good.
He was.
And it's funny how like he
That's why I called him in our group text. Jesus Greiss superstar.
He was outstanding, and you know, made a lot of big saves. And it's
one glove save, man. He made a great glove save.
Yeah, and both he and Elliott were definitely off in weird ways, but still making great saves. Like it was really straight. There was like an offness to Greiss's game where he was overplaying the angles too far.
I think the reads aren't perfect on both of them, but they're athletic enough that they make up for it.
Yeah. They were leaving like the goal Provorov scored to make it 3-2 was a goal, a shot the Flyers had more of than they thought. Like there were a lot of times when Greiss just wasn't on his angle, and they were trying to make these incredible shots where if he just, you know, passed it into the corner of the net, you would have scored. There was a lot of that going on, and Provorov basically did on that shot.
I do want to point out there was a shot. You'll probably remember it, Eck. Giroux took one that was caught in the corner by Greiss, but the problem was whoever passed it to him, and it may have been Konechny, gave him a great pass, right? But he shot it way too fast and didn't have as much on it as Claude Giroux normally would. He didn't one-time it, and he really didn't even give it his best wrist shot. He literally just kind of flubbed it on net, just right in the same motion, like, hey, you give it to me, I'm putting it right there, maybe it'll go in, instead of using his best shot.
Yeah, it was a Provorov made a great play on that and passed it to him, and he didn't one time it, like almost one time wrist shot type shot.
It was a weird in between.
And for Claude Giroux, the thing about that is when he's normally in that spot, when he's confident when that pass he gets there, he goes on the goalie and just goes straight at the goalie and basically try, and he had the speed going that he could easily turn the defenseman. He could have cut in front, opened the legs up, slid. Yeah. That's like a Giroux play, which you scored tons of goals that way in his career. But right now, since he hasn't scored, he's just shooting at every opportunity he gets. And he played his best game of the series last night, but it's still not enough.
Yeah,
it wasn't. That was definitely a really. I mean, he played a really strong game. I don't know if the Flyers have what it takes to beat the Islanders, and I don't know if the Islanders, like you said, I don't even know if Tampa's the team, if they're gonna have the best, easiest time with them either. The Islanders are definitely they feel a lot like the Vegas, the Vegas team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals in some way. They just have that speed and that opportunistic element to them that's tough to top. They're a fun team to watch.
If you remember 2 days ago, I brought up. Well, actually, it was on Off the Post. You wouldn't have known that, X. Sorry, not to rub it in. But I brought up Nelson piercing the zone and really making good plays. And Nelson may have had his best game of the series, and he's been playing good already. Like, that's finally what the Islanders needed are those kinds of guys to step up. That's been a big difference for them.
So Vancouver, Vegas. Let's go to that one now. Last night these two also played back-to-back games the last 2 days, and you could see Vancouver's firing just a ton of shots.
Yeah.
At Vegas in both these games, and I thought Fleury was good last night. I didn't think he thought he was fine.
Yeah, he looked fine. I mean, I didn't watch the whole game, but he looked fine.
Starting goalies, they're solid. They're doing really well, and I think that Vegas, the common denominator with like the teams, when you look at Vegas, Tampa, Dallas, and the Islanders, all those teams are just really fast teams. They're all just really quick teams. And what's happening with Vegas is, even though Vancouver has a line that's really fast, the whole Vegas team in general is faster. And the same things happening with Colorado. Like the whole whole Dallas team seems to be faster. And
Vegas has a couple of slower guys in Stone and Pacioretty, but they've got their worth when they get around the net.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And they're just really pounding at home, and you're going to see like if all four teams that are up 3-1 end up going to the conference finals, which remember goes to Edmonton. So that's like another thing here that plays into this, I think, for the bubble teams that are down 3-1. We've got to win all these games and then go to Edmonton, and still we have a chance after that.
This is the longest Scotiabank's been open in a long time.
Oh, for sure. So this is it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think you'll see some teams head over. How quickly could we see teams head to Edmonton? Pretty damn fast here in the next couple of days. So I think that. So to me, the Vancouver Vegas series is just. It kind of feels like Vancouver feels a little bit like the Flyers in that they shouldn't necessarily be there yet. They have some good talent,
they do,
but they're further along than they should be. And
they have some difference makers. They definitely have 3 or 4 of them. They have a goalie. They don't have the defense. Like, they just don't
hold it against either of those teams for losing in the final 8. I think that's another thing that Vancouver is there's not a lot of pressure on Vancouver so that's where it does become maybe a little bit harder to motivate in the bubble, I guess. But Vancouver doesn't have, like, as opposed to the Flyers, Vancouver doesn't have those veterans that are that should be like looking at this. Like,
that was a good ad.
No, I think it was accurate at the beginning of this series to say that. We were saying that the Vancouver Canucks were the 2009 Blackhawks, that this is a team that is good. It's got the core talent, but is 1 year away of experience and maybe a player or two away in terms of, I don't think their defense is good enough, as great as Quinn Hughes is. A guy like Chris Tanev is playing like 25 minutes a night, and Myers just came back, and Jordy Ben was out for a while, and Edler was playing a shutdown role, which he's not accustomed to. I mean, all these things. It's like, they sort of need to, I think, probably move a player or two out, open up cap space, improve in other areas. But Vegas is a juggernaut right now. They really are.
And they have the goaltending too. Like, if they have a bad game out of a goalie, they've got the best tandem in there. It's unbelievable. They
do. They have a really solid tandem, and it seems hard to. It's hard to imagine anybody else coming out of the West when you watch them play. Like, they just are. I mean, and Dallas is having this hell of a run here, but it's just hard to imagine.
Dallas is having a hell of a run.
But Dallas is also aided by a weakened Colorado team.
Oh, yeah, there's no
right?
question.
If they let's say they do advance and they play
Yeah.
Vegas, Vegas is pretty much 100% healthy, right? They're not really missing anyone, so it's definitely a step up in tier in terms of in the next round, presuming that both these teams end up closing it out.
Right. No, for sure. So let's talk about Dallas and Colorado, because this series has been, I mean, I'll be the first to admit I thought this was the Francouz was the goalie for them that they should be playing from the beginning. Obviously, he has not been not ready yet.
Grubauer's slightly better, but Francouz, he's not a terrible
goalie. It's not like he's 21 years old. He's an adult. He's an experienced player. He's just not good enough. I'm not saying he's a bad goaltender. I mean, it was an open question when Anthony was on the show. He said he believed that Francouz could be the guy. I think he's proved through 4 games that he's not. I think they would have stuck with Grubauer.
Grubauer's hurt him like that. They've not been the same since that injury.
And obviously Eric Johnson being hurt also is a huge loss. Mike's talked about a couple of times. I mean, it's almost immeasurable to a certain extent, which is surprising to a certain extent also.
Yeah. But really, last night, and I'm writing about this now, and you can't underestimate the stupidity of one player affecting a team and their fortunes. And we'll talk about who in the Boston Tampa series affected them, but. Now folks, why Toronto traded Nazem Kadri, because that guy is just dumb. He takes stupid penalties at the worst possible friggin' time, and he did it in the first period. He took 2 minor penalties, both of them because of a complete lack of impulse control and discipline, and it cost them 2 power play goals, and they really never recovered, even though Colorado rallied in the second period and dominated and got it to 3-2 and had a chance to tie the game. You're down 3-0 in the first period with no shots on goal for the first 18 minutes. And the reason that they gave up 2 power play goals was because Kadri took stupid penalties. He cannot control himself. He's a talented player. There's no doubt whatsoever. And it was not a great deal for Toronto. And people in the chat are ripping me because it's still a horrible trade. No, it was a necessary trade. The mistake was that Dubas didn't get the players that they needed coming back. But moving Kadri was necessary because he's just a dumb hockey player at times.
It's hard to imagine. I mean, he's played so well and so poorly. He's been all over the place.
He's been all over the place.
He scored the game-winning goal in Game 3. He's got 7 goals. He's tied with McKinnon. He scored 6 of his 7 goals against Arizona, so that should be fair.
I think yesterday, the penalties were like you say, stupid penalties. But also a guy like this sometimes has to learn when he's not going to be the motivator. Like he's going out there, he's trying to get the team moving when that team wasn't skating in sand. I think he's trying to do something to get them going. And I'm not saying, they're good penalties at all, but I think what is happening is he's just like, I'm going to go out there and do something. And that lack of discipline definitely has hurt him in the past. And
that's
what they need. But it's also, he also probably sees it as part of his responsibility in that situation on that team. So it's a tough spot. It's tough to be in.
This is the thing. It's this cannot be explained as, youthful exuberance. Nazem Kadri is 29 years old. He is what he is.
Youthful exuberance. I don't think it's youthful exuberance at all.
No. I'm saying you could have said if he was 21 or 22 that it was youthful exuberance. Here, it's just a lack of discipline.
I think it's trying to do something and not realizing that you can hurt your team more by doing that. Sometimes you're going to take dumb penalties. Like you have to.
And they did attempt to make that comeback. The Makar play killed them, but everybody wants to put it all on Makar. But I do think there was something with Francouz not communicating with him, and then I think Makar took a stab at it because Francouz was sort of like in between on it first.
It's funny. It goes back to like the Steve Smith goal, which everybody was comparing it to, or whatever. And I always from this day, and will still demand the fact that Grant Fuhr screwed that up. Like the Steve Smith goal was Grant Fuhr made a bad play on it. And people just, as a goalie, that should never happen. You shouldn't have that. Even that shouldn't even be a possibility for that goal to go in.
But let's give Dallas some credit here. They're getting production and they're getting contribution from all 4 forward lines. They've got Pavelski on basically on a third line. They've got Perry on either third or fourth line. So they spread out their veterans. They're getting production out of their number 1 line. Radulov, Ben, and Sagan didn't do much against Calgary. They've been doing a lot against Colorado. Their defense is jumping into the attack. Heiskanen, as you said, has been fantastic.
Yeah, he's having
not only him, but Klingberg and Lindell.
Yeah, Klingberg's picked it up.
Yeah, they're and yesterday they got good and timely goaltending by Khudobin. He made, like, when they were up 3-0 and they sat, and this is, I was talking, I mentioned it to my brother, and he was like, when I said, Dallas was up 3-0 and then all of a sudden they sit back, and says you cannot sit back against Colorado. And it's like, right. Well, I mean, the mentality there is, even if the coach doesn't say it, they're going to sit back because they have a 3-0 lead. But
right.
At this point, I'm sure Goryanov's leading the playoffs in goals, right?
He's tied 8.
I'm tied. Okay. I mean, 8 goals, like that's
an amazing thing. I mean,
amazing. But again, he had 20 during the regular season, so he's always been a goal scorer. This guy has always been able to put the puck in the net. It was just going to be a matter of time until he did it in the NHL, and now that's been a big boost for the Stars.
And Corey Perry has been an absolute pain in the ass.
Good.
He drew 4 penalties yesterday, one of them from McKinnon.
Right.
Now, he does it the right way. He's a pain in the ass, but he, most of the time he doesn't take the stupid penalty. He gets the stupid penalty taken against him because he's so aggravating.
Oh, he's incredibly aggravating to play against. Players just can't stand him, but he does, like, he puts himself, like, that's what Kadri needs to learn how to do, like that. If Kadri could learn how to do that,
never will. It's too late.
He'd be a better player because that's the kind of it's the Ty Domi thing.
Avery in the league. Avery figured out how to draw penalties after a while.
Right, Ty Domi.
He knew how he affected others.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll go Boston Tampa before we get into some rumor chart stuff and rumors that I have to talk about today. So the Boston Tampa series is just coming down to, is this just simply coming down to goaltending? Is it really like? Is it?
Well, part of it, and I think also the depth that Tampa has is a greater edge because, like, here's a good example. Like, they're saying Corrali and Nick Ritchie are game time decisions. Now, Corrali is legit hurt. Ritchie is not, and we'll talk about Ritchie in a minute.
Yeah.
And Ritchie's hurt. He's got a brain injury. Is what he has.
But he's not really hurt. And look, and they could put Studnicka in, and I'm fine with that. And Bork, they're not going to get the same kind of production, but they'll be faster. So maybe that helps. But the problem is, they're back to being the one-line team again, and even Coyle has not done enough in the last few games. So, yeah, it does look like it's goaltending and depth.
Yeah, it feels like they're goaltending without respect, their confidence just on all the other things that they do. And what makes the Boston so good is their confidence. Their confidence is faltered.
Well, I think Halak gave up 1 bad goal.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's totally been his fault either.
I think it was the second goal was a bad goal. He didn't have a chance on the first one on the Palat goal, and the third one not as it was not as much. But I mean, it was just a deflection off of Lindholm's boot and over his. Nobody would have stopped that. But no, I mean, the thing is, I'm not saying Rask is letter perfect, but Rask doesn't usually let up those. He'll do it once every few games, but he normally doesn't let in a bad goal. And Halak has given up a few goals, but it's been the depth of Tampa Bay. That third line of Goudreau, Coleman, and Gord. Is providing a matchup problem for the Bruins. Their third line really hasn't done much. And, they've been able to limit when all the responsibility for scoring is all on the shoulders of Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak, and they don't perform and they don't score, then you're done. And then right now they're between a rock and a hard place, down 3-1 against a team that I think is motivated.
No, big time motivated and working hard. That's the other thing about that. What you're seeing there is, again, it's hard work. It's Tampa's outworking Boston. And
someone in the chat room said, hey, like, Chara looks old. I think, goalies aside, I think this bubble and the way that the season got stopped and then resumed has been harder on older players. There's no question about it. We can name a litany of them that don't look the same. Justin Williams was a good one from the start. It's hard. It's hard because these guys were like, they got it all together to get the regular season going, and then they had to stop for 4 months. So the youth part has done better with that, except goalies. Goalies are different.
I don't know which of the teams down 3-1 has the best chance to rally.
That's a really good question.
I would say Boston because if Halak just plays a little better, they could certainly get back in the series. I don't think, aside from the one game, I think they've played a better series than the Flyers. I think if you take, again, it's pretty ugly for the Flyers if you take away the overtime goal win.
Well, the interesting thing here is Dallas, Colorado are playing back-to-back tonight.
Yeah, and that really down 3-1. That changes things a lot. Having back-to-back games for 5 and 6.
Well, Bednar was asked after the game yesterday. They're not obviously Grubauer's not available, and they're not going to go to Michael Hutchinson back-to-back. So Francouz, that was probably one of the reasons they took out Francouz. On top of him giving up 5 goals was the fact that they were going to play him in back-to-back games. But I wonder whether we see if he is healthy, if whether we see Ben Bishop or whether we see Khudobin going back to back. And I don't think you're going to see Jake Ottinger, Russ. But I mean, if Bishop is healthy and it just they was unfit to play because of some other reason, then this is the game that you would see Bishop come in.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Bishop. I really think Khudobin is their guy, and I think Bowness is hesitant to say it, because Bishop has a big contract and he does, and if they do want to move him, you can't downgrade him here because that's going to hurt you because their season's going to end in a month and then they're going to have to trade him. So I just think it doesn't matter at this point.
Jan, who do you think has the best shot at coming back?
You know what? I'm actually going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Colorado.
Okay.
Just because if that offensive talent gets rolling, we know what they can do, right? And we've seen them be able to put up 3 goals in 5 minutes, 3 goals in 6 minutes, right? In this game, almost every game there's been a streak, right? We've seen like a runoff of 3 goals in a short span of time, right? So, look, Francouz hasn't looked particularly good. Losing Johnson hurts. We didn't talk about Mal Calvert hurts, and what really is killing them, and this is what really is killing, I think, them without Johnson, is their penalty kill has been an absolute nightmare. I mean, Dallas is just having an enormous amount of space and time with great puck movement to score off on the power play, which is where Johnson would probably help them on the penalty kill. But when you look at names like McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog, and you look at Makar on the blue line, look, I think first of all they need to shake things up and maybe need to make some other lineup changes. Russ and I, we've talked about putting Timmins or Bynum in a couple of times already. I mean, I don't know if you're down 3-1, you might as well throw everything and see what happens.
That's what I would do.
And secondly, if the offense gets rolling, right? Not that they could basically subsume Dallas, but they could get a 2-3 goal lead at some point in time and just kind of hold on. And I do think if they get one, they may get a second game, and then you go to a game 7. I mean, we'll see what happens, but that's kind of my pick to try to maybe extend the series.
I agree with you, Jan. When they got to 3-2 yesterday, I saw they zoomed in on Sagan, and he didn't have the most confident look on his bench. Like he looked like, uh-oh. But I do think, why aren't you putting these kids on the blue line and see? Because just a little more movement might be enough to throw Dallas off. It really could.
I'm going to say something that people are going to call me a homer for. And remember, I picked the Islanders in this.
Here we go.
No. Wait, just give me a chance.
You just said you're going to say something people think I'm a homer. It's not that hard to figure out.
I still think the Islanders are going to win the series. But if you ask me what team has the best chance of coming back, I think the Flyers have been in the games more than the other 3 teams have. I mean, these games have been tighter. Flyers have been they've been 1-goal games that look at going into every third period in the Flyers series, right? Every third period. I think it was 1-1 last night. It was 2-1 the night before that.
I think that's because of the way the Islanders play. But how many of those games did you think the Flyers were really going to win?
No, I thought last night I really did. I had a really kind of a good feeling about last night's game that they were playing as it went on, but that was the only one I think. I wasn't even confident when they were up. In the
overtime game, you said you weren't confident at all.
No, I wasn't at all. But last night I felt like in the second period was the first period I saw the Flyers really match them, and even surpass them as far as their work ethic goes. And what I think they started to do that works, and I hope they jump on this, is they played a series against Montreal. They played Montreal's game. They played a series against the Islanders now where they're playing the Islanders game. What they have to realize is neither of those 2 teams are the greatest offensively. So the reality is they need to take more chances on the forecheck to not worry as much about these.
They have so many turnovers, Zach. Yesterday they had 2 in one sequence.
Yeah, but the turnovers are happening.
Had a lot.
The turnovers are happening in their own zone and the neutral zone, but it's like in the Islander zone, that's where they have to make things happen. And that's to me the difference. To me, the difference is if they can this. And the other thing about the characteristic of this Flyers team in general is they don't play hard until they have to. And that's been the way these guys have been for years. I mean, this is a team like this team has been that way forever. How many times we talk about how terrible they were in first periods and how but then they have the ability at times to turn it on. And I'm not saying they're going to. I don't think any of these teams are coming back.
For Michael Cohen, I had the Flyers in 7, not 6.
Yeah, I don't think any of these teams are coming back. But I don't totally think that the Flyers are out of it in terms of the fact that if they can get a big win in Game 5, and if they can do it in a way where they can break this Islanders defense apart a little bit. I
don't even think it's that. I really think it's so much pressure, but it's going to be Carter Hart. If he pitches a shutout, they'll win.
He's the other factor too. And like I said, these have been 1-goal games. I mean, they really have been. When you look at the Dallas and Colorado, there have been not close games. With the exception of one game in the Flyers series, the first game, obviously they've all been close, and even the first game was close for a long time. So,
yeah, the last two haven't been that close though, in the sense that after one good period, the Islanders dominated. Like even before they scored that first goal yesterday, I don't think there's a person who's on this show that didn't think that was coming within the next 2-3 minutes. The way they were dominated.
Yeah, but I mean, the second period and then the third parts of the third period too. Last night they weren't dominating it. I mean that was last night was even. I mean the game before that I'll give you the Flyers dominated the first couple minutes of the game and then the Islanders took it over. But last night the Flyers had dominated large parts of the second period and large parts of the third period. Granted, they're trying to come from behind, but
you must have been watching a different game because the Islanders were out shooting them 20-9 up until the time that Couturier tipped in the puck.
Yeah, the Flyers ended up winning the shots.
I know. I'm just saying. I thought the Islanders were in control for most of the first and most of the second period. And then the third, until the Islanders took the lead, was a pretty even exchange. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're
still tight though. The Flyers hit the post right before the Islanders score last night.
You're talking about the Flyers doing something in this series that they haven't done so far. And whenever you're asking for a team to do that, I think you're asking for a lot.
I'll tell you something they haven't seen, and this is why it's a tall order. I do think Konechny has a bad shoulder, and he has not drawn any penalties. He usually draws 1 or 2 a game, and instead the Islanders are sort of in his head. And same with Voracek. He is not drawing any penalties by holding on to the puck and piercing the zone. He is barely doing that. Those are factors that usually make a good game for the Flyers and give them power plays.
No
they haven't been getting those power plays.
No question. I'm not saying that they're going to. Just ask the question which team has the best chance. I think and you're right, Mike. They haven't done it yet, but they have done it in spells. They haven't done it for an entire game, for sure. But there are spells when you see that when you start to see the talent differentiation between the two teams, and it's minor. They're not doing enough of it, and they're not getting goals, and they're not finishing.
If the Islanders score the first goal, do you start warming up Kate Smith?
Fat lady.
I think we should see God Bless America. I wonder if they would do that in the bubble. I was thinking about that the other day. Like I think for Game 5, because it is technically a home game for the Flyers.
Well, I'll tell you something funny. 2 weeks ago when I played the charity softball game in Brooklyn, they did a God Bless America in like the 7th inning, and they had it taped, and they used Kate Smith, and I was like, "Is this a Flyers home game? What is this?"
I want to see, and there should be a petition out there if there isn't already. Probably is. On Twitter, there should be a petition for like the Lauren Hart, Kate Smith, God Bless America before Game 5. Because that's when they would play it for sure. If they were home.
Don't we remember why that was banned, folks?
Yes, we know why.
Yes,
okay. I know.
Let's not forget. Okay.
This is a good question though.
Question from the chat: who will the Panthers GM be? If it's Peter Chiarelli, I'm laughing.
Yeah, has there ever been a team with more rumored possible GMs in this situation? They've interviewed everybody.
They had somebody who they identified as a candidate, and he withdrew himself from consideration, according to Elliot Freeman. That was Chris Drury. I mean, Drury seemed to be their number one candidate, and he took himself out of contention.
And that's clearly where Brooks got the other information from.
Yep.
I talked to 3 people who've interviewed for this job, and the interviews have been like 8 hours long. They're like it's an insane.
They're extracting information from you, asking what you could do to make the team better.
That's what they're doing, and they're doing a lot of that. And it's never a bad idea. But
step 1: trade Mike Matheson.
But I mean, I got to feel
among the number one things on my action list.
This is going to come down to who the owner really likes. The owner is.
I think it's more than that. It's going to come down to who the owner and Joel Quenneville likes.
Yeah.
You want to know what my step 2 would be on the action list if I were the GM? Bringing Roberto Luongo as the goalie coach. It's not that Bob needs to learn anything, but I think Luongo could teach Bob something on how to manage when things aren't going well.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Luongo has been through all of that.
That's a really good call because Luongo has been through that, and he had moments when he couldn't emotionally handle it. That's interesting.
And he could earn some of the
I
salary.
don't know if I'd move to South Florida, but I'll certainly interview for it if they're interested.
Well, you could eventually be the GM of the Quebec Nordiques. You don't know that. Things could change. I jokingly have said that to 2 people who've interviewed for it. I'm like, so you're ready to be the GM of the Quebec Nordiques? And I'm like, yeah.
It does look like Chiarelli's the leader. It really does feel that.
So. I'm not buying it. From what I've heard. I mean, I've heard other people, but I'm not buying.
Well, because it's sort of nobody wants it. Everybody's interviewing for it, and then like Jan said, like Drury dropped out like 10 minutes after. Like nobody really wants it. That's the problem.
Well, you have to be willing to they're not. I don't get the sense this is why Hextall I think is kind of not in it anymore. It is not the kind of team that's going to let you have complete and utter control to the extent they're going to want collaboration. Quenneville's the coach that's already there. That's a situation we have to deal with. They paid a lot for Quenneville, and they believe in Quenneville, so that takes that kind of handicaps some kind of certain GMs who don't.
It does,
and I think that's why you're going to see certain.
You're not going to go in fire Quenneville. You're not.
That doesn't mean that you can't. Just because you don't have that complete and utter say for everything that ever happens, doesn't mean you can't be a good GM. And there are GMs out there who have made that situation work, because that situation exists in a lot of cities. I mean, that situation exists in Philly forever, and
in Toronto.
All right, you know what I call that? All right, recall back, or anybody on this show, recall back you trying to persuade your grandfather of anything. How easy was that as a conversation for any of us?
Yeah, no, it's true.
It was very hard.
True. Now it's even just in-laws and stuff. Yeah, I mean it doesn't even everything everybody's got their own opinions these days.
Yeah.
But
let's go with some rumors.
Yeah, let's go with some rumors. All right, so I'm gonna go and bring in the rumor chart for a second here into my screen. A little bit of rumor chart fun stuff for us. Okay, so starting off with this guy, Alex Pietrangelo, who a lot of stuff on him and a lot of different differing opinions on him. I've heard a ton of talk. I think there's something written last night about, or somebody said something about Winnipeg and Toronto being in this, which is definitely true. They are involved in it. I've heard Buffalo, a lot of Buffalo as well. And recently I've heard the Islanders rising more than Blues. This is the first time, the reason I say this is the first time on the rumor chart that I've had anybody but the Blues at the very top spot for this. And it's only doing this because it's alphabetically. They're tied 25% still, but it's the first time anybody's been up there. And Winnipeg though definitely is being more aggressive as well. So I think you can see them in this situation too. Some of these other teams, Buffalo has had their moments. Buffalo really looked strong on them for a while, and then
I actually could see the Red Wings because he has won. Yeah. I could see Yzerman saying, "Look, have faith in me.
Yeah.
We'll be better before the end of your contract, and we'll be really good." And you know what? And he'll get a nice payday. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I could see it happening too.
I can see most of them. I really honestly cannot see Buffalo. Buffalo makes absolutely no sense. They're a tire fire right now. And that's not only organizationally, but we're also talking about cap wise, because you've got Rasmus Dahlin up for a new contract. You're not going to get him on a bridge deal. He's going to expect to get paid. You have a situation with Sam Reinhart as an RFA this year. He's going to expect to get paid. If they're in on Taylor Hall or if they're in on Pietrangelo, they're going to have to either find some sucker to take Jeff Skinner's $9 million or trade Reinhart. So I don't know if anybody would be dumb enough to take Jeff Skinner at $9 million, because he's not a $9 million player. He's a good player, but he's not a $9 million player.
I still would add the Flyers because they're going to be without Braun's contract. They'll try and move Gostisbehere if they feel like Pietrangelo is a realistic option, and they'll have the money then.
It's
they're closer to winning.
Well, that's the key, honestly, right? To me, I don't think he's going somewhere where money drives all. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to win.
Right.
And on that list, Buffalo and Detroit seem to be the furthest away from winning in terms of a landing spot.
And that's where Toronto, in spite of their early eliminations in the playoffs, that's where Toronto has a bit of an advantage. Plus, he's from Toronto. But again, as I've said many a time, the only way that deal happens, that they can sign Pietrangelo, is if they trade William Nylander, because they would have to clear out the cap space to be able to sign Pietrangelo. Whether Dubas is willing to do that this year, we don't know. The one thing we did hear, and again, I'm skeptical of the sources that the rumor came from, but there had been some things popping out there this weekend regarding Pietrangelo wanting to stay in St. Louis and St. Louis being willing to trade Colton Parayko to clear the cap space to re-sign him. Toronto would be interested, obviously, because Parayko is a good, big right-hand shot defenseman. But
the
reported package that St. Louis would be expecting is so over the top that I don't think there's any way the Leafs would make the deal that was reported. So, okay, continue.
Oh, here's another one. So these are two other players. Again, Rakaguz, a lot of people have heard about Toronto being on his radar. I would be really careful if I was Toronto with Rakagudis, but it does sound like
what do you mean in terms of what?
He's your second defenseman you add. Like he's not your first.
But he's okay. It depends on what you envision his role as.
Yeah, because if you put too much on him, it becomes a problem. Like he's a really good 5'6".
Right. That's what I think he's. That's what I think they're looking.
I'm afraid that if they bring him in,
he could do that. Hey, Eck, I wanted to mention something about Erik Haula. I actually think you look at that. That's a good fit for the Rangers because I don't think they're going to re-sign Strome. And actually, Haula plays a much better defensive game, and the Rangers forwards need to get better defensively. And I think that's something you could sell to that team.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really.
I just back to Gudis. I don't think anybody who he is signing with is going to give him any more than say $3 million because he is an established 5'6". If nobody's paying him 3-4 money, that's up and.
No, I don't think so either. I don't disagree with that. And Torrey Krug is again Winnipeg, Montreal, Toronto.
I could see Montreal. I could.
What about Detroit?
I was going to say, I think Detroit
1-2 for sure.
I haven't heard. I've tried to find that. I wanted to put Detroit on here too. I thought about that, but
it
doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like he's going to want a lot, and he's going to be away from, to get away from Buffalo. He still has a lot of, power, a lot of pull. I think Buffalo's still going to try going hard for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a good playoffs. He's not the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he's from Michigan, and they have tons of cap space. So,
and he's been rooming there for years. If he didn't re-sign with Boston,
yes.
But he's gonna have to get me that's going to a team that is not close to winning, like you guys said before. So,
Pietrangelo is a little different in my opinion in terms of the movement, right? Krug is a little younger also, which gives him more lead time for Detroit to get there. Pietrangelo is a little older.
That's true. And Pietrangelo to me is a little bit of older in terms of also style of play, which versus what you're seeing now in the NHL more. I think Krug fits more into like the current defender. I think Pietrangelo could potentially be not a great pickup for somebody in my mind. As much as I like him, I worry a little bit that he could become like, oh man, he's gets so much money for such a long time and he's already kind of old.
There's a limit of how much you can pay. If he's expecting $9 million. And it's on a 7-year deal, then the team that signs him is in trouble in years 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah. I think that's for sure. You have to be a team that can either eat that or figure out a way to move it. You have to be a team that's really close. If you're going
and by the way, I stand corrected. There's not a big of an age difference between the two of them that I thought. It's maybe about a year. So I thought Krug was actually a little younger, but it's only about a year between.
It feels like a bigger age difference. I agree with you, Janet. And But
Pietrangelo, I think, has a bit more wear and tear on him, given the style of play that he's had and given his number of years in the league. So
yeah, that I would agree with that too. I mean, he's obviously they're both powerhouses. Pietrangelo is a bigger, money guy, probably going to make more money than Krug, but Krug, as his values keep going up, and obviously the coach in Montreal likes him, knows him, loves him. That's a big thing for Montreal. I think you're going to see. Yeah, Montreal definitely made enough strides in the playoffs so they could make a move like this. I think.
I could see San Jose for Krug because they at this point they probably still, even though they have true offensive defensemen, we've seen in these playoffs, if you have one on each pairing that could really move the puck, you're in good shape. They also have a kid in their system, Ryan Merkley, who could take a few lessons from Torrey Krug on how to carry himself and play. He's only, a couple inches taller than Torrey Krug and has similar talent. That's something where I think that'd be valuable for them.
Yeah, but Russ, the problem is that they have $25 million invested in their top three defensemen.
But what if they could move Vlasic or can move someone?
Well, if that's possible, sure. I don't know how that's possible with his. He's declining and he's making $7. That's if they retain salary, but then that sort of defeats the purpose if you're going to go out and spend, say, $7 to $8 million on Krug. Their problem is they don't have enough money to devote to the forwards, and now their forward. Now Thornton is gone. Marlowe will not be coming back. They're building around Couture and Kane and Hurdle and Timo.
What was Marlowe making? $3 million.
What was that?
What was Marlowe making?
Oh, he was on league minimum $700,000 this year.
He was on that level. Okay.
Yeah. Thornton was in the twos.
Yeah, they'd have to move out a high-priced player for sure.
Yeah, they just don't have. They really don't.
Find a sucker to take Martin Jones, because Martin Jones can't come back.
Yeah, I think that's a buyout.
I wouldn't say that's impossible.
It's a long buyout. It's at 8 years. You got 4 years left. It's an 8-year buyout.
That's an 8-year buyout.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they goalie coaches before they buy out Martin Jones.
Yeah, they should. Martin Jones, you would like to think could recover, but. Just doesn't seem like it.
2 years in a row, he's been a sieve.
I know. It really doesn't seem like it.
We used to call Elliott a sieve, and Elliott's been really good this year. Really, really good.
Yeah, but look what he's making.
I know, but you don't want to base a goalie on what they're making. If a goalie's good, it doesnn't matter what he's making.
Yeah, I think Elliott and Greiser are both free agents. Did themselves some favors last night in that game for sure. Both played well enough to get some ice.
I feel like with Jan, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher now. He has no picture up. So it's really weird. He's
sorry.
No biggie.
I just said that.
Jason Spezza, let's talk about him for a second. He's brought up as a question mark in the chat room. I thought Jason Spezza had a heck of a year for Toronto, and
he had a good year. He's going to come back.
He's a good fourth line center now. Is kind of what he is, right? You're going to probably pay him $1 million, $1.2 million, maybe $1.5 million at most.
No. He's willing to come back at league minimum,
which is what? It's a little under $1 million. It's almost $1 million now.
$750.
No, it went up. I think this year. I think the league minimum.
No, it went up to $750.
$750. Okay.
$700. Yeah, no. He in the season-ending media availability says, "I want to come back." The Leafs, I think, want him to come back. The only thing that's been sort of a caveat is, Joe Thornton's name was floated out there, and if you go after Joe Thornton as a fourth-line center, then you're not bringing back Spezza too. So, I think Spezza worked fine after Babcock was fired. He played really well.
Yeah.
He was a good veteran influence on that team and performed well. So I think more than I think it's about to be like 80-20. He signs a league minimum deal to stay in Toronto.
I would definitely take him over Thornton big time. I just think because Thornton is very specific what he gives you. Thornton might help your power play a little bit more. You would love to see Thornton setting up some of those snipers that the Leafs have.
Spezza can still skate.
Yeah.
He can still fly.
I don't think Thornton's playing.
No, I don't think so either.
Based on the picture that we saw of him during he had a beer gut that would.
Hey, none of us can like.
Honestly, Joe Thornton looks like the guy who could be selling popsicles on the beach.
He looked like
quarantine killed us all.
Like Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Joe Pavelski, let's talk. Big problem in the chat room too. I know we're going to talk about him for a second, but he really has been crazy. He's been a crazy story this year. Like
he has. He's a guy who's the bubbles helped him.
There is nobody. Yeah, there was nobody who had who was a bigger disappointment than Joe Pavelski was for their team this year. Like as a big signing, he
saved it for the time in the year that when it counts.
Maybe he's
some players have that. Some players have playoff experience, but the crazy ability. But the crazy thing is, although Pavelski has had that somewhat for the Sharks in a couple of seasons, there were a lot of seasons where Pavelski was just true. But the reality is, lately, he's become a playoff like a Danny Briere playoff character. Just that's in there and just scores points in the playoffs like crazy.
He had a lousy regular season. I think it was extremely
horrible.
But now he was great in the series against Calgary, and he's been really good. He not only he's only being asked to play. In San Jose, he was playing a top 6 role. In Dallas, he's playing more of a third line role, but he's on that top power play, and he makes it go. I mean, they put Radulov, Ben Sagan, and Klingberg, and Pavelski is sort of it runs through Klingberg and him. So he's been extremely effective.
No, yeah, extremely excited. We'll do one more thing from the rumor chart real fast, and then we'll get out of here. Let me bring this up here. I'll try this one here. All right. So 2 lesser names, but they're available. The guys that are available out there, those are UFAs, and they are, these are the kind of guys that could be interesting, could help a team out, somewhere along the line.
I think Vatanen's going to get a lot of interest. He was healthy. He's a top 4 defenseman. There's not a ton of them that are out there. They're going to be in the marketplace, and it'll probably come at a much more reasonable price than some of the bigger names.
Well, what do you think reasonable is?
4.5.
4.5 to 5.
Oh, I don't think he'll take that.
Well, whether he takes it and whether he'll get it is a whole nother matter altogether.
There's not much money out there. Not that much money out there is the problem. He might have to take that.
And if he does, he probably takes a shorter term deal. Probably takes a 3-year instead of a 4-year, so he can get one more. Remember, I think he's 28. So, at 31, he might be able to still get another contract if he takes a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, I think he's looking for 4 or 5. Honestly,
he made $2.437 million this year.
He's looking to get paid.
That was split though from.
Right.
I think he was almost
4.5
last year. Yeah, it was almost 5.
Yeah, I mean he's going to get over 5 even in a bad market. He will. He's a right-handed shot defenseman.
But I think you have the wrong California team in the lead there in terms of where he could go because there's been a lot of chatter about him going back to Anaheim, especially with
heard that too. But I think that would be a great fit for him. But I have not by talking to my sources in Anaheim, they all kept saying no, LA's higher on him, which is interesting. So.
Yeah, but I just do not see San Jose in the market for another defenseman unless they are able to trade off. And then
it's funny. This is what I'll say, Mike. And this is the rumor. The rumor chart is a different thing than my rumors, right? Because the rumor chart is my opinions based on stuff I've heard. And this is what's happening with San Jose is this. Because I agree with you what you're saying, Mike. As we sit right now, 100%. But the problem is, I keep hearing San Jose tied to these defensemen. So I've made calls and I've gone down. I went down a rabbit hole with this a couple days ago. With calling it 4 or 5 different people about why am I hearing San Jose interested in defensemen because of all the reasons you're saying. And it's that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They're up to something else. Doug Wilson is up to something else. There's going to be a move here coming from the Sharks because the Sharks really, more than almost any other team, I think, feel the need to do something large right now. Based on the season they just had, based on how disappointing it was and how, so they're going to make another move here that's going to either open up spots or trade a defenseman away or something's going to happen.
Well, okay, here's your current situation. Carlson is in just past year 1 at 11.5, and he missed half the year with an injury.
Right.
Brent Burns is 5 more years at 8, and Vlasic 6 more years at 7. The only way they move any one of those is retaining significant salary.
Right.
Yeah.
They would have to retain at least $2 million on Vlasic. And I still wouldn't trade for Vlasic with 6 years left, even at $5 million.
Many years, you're right.
No, it's a ton. It's a ton of stuff that has to happen for them to make this move. I agree with you. But I get the impression that one of those guys is going somewhere, and I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how you're not going to move Carlson, obviously. Brent Burns, I wouldn't move him, but maybe they will. I mean, for whatever. I mean,
I think
they had Brent Burns and Carlson and were horrible. Like the reality is, maybe the two of them just don't work well together. I mean, the reality that's something.
Somebody actually has to play defense.
I on the bottom line here, Rick, I think VC to the Devils makes sense. I think VC will only play on the East Coast. I don't think he's a West Coast guy at all. He's played with his family and all that. That's a good acquisition for the Devils if they get him because that doesn't cost you too much. He could add some offense.
He's a third pair guy.
Yeah,
he's miscast on the second line. He's a third line winger, and he can chip in 18 to 22 goals a year.
Yeah, just to go back to the Sharks.
Yeah.
Vlasic has a no move clause.
Right.
That can't be.
I don't think there's any worry anyhow. It doesn't seem like you can move him.
So does Carlson. The only one who has a modified no trade is Burns. So if you're going to trade one of those three, I would say Burns would probably be.
It would have to be Burns. I agree.
Russ, are you saying that's an app moniker for him?
Yeah, I would say that.
As for VC, I think the 20% for Buffalo is high. I think it's 0.
Mhm.
Now he came here. Well, it was a trade, but I don't think he wanted to come here. He clearly, when he had the right to decide where he wanted to go, decided not Buffalo because his rights were traded and he decided to go to the Rangers.
Right.
Maybe he goes to Arizona, but I'll tell you right now, the stuff that came out this weekend regarding Arizona is full rebuild.
Oh, yeah.
They're shopping.
Arizona probably will have a new GM too. I keep hearing that. I keep hearing that Arizona's not just going to.
Well, they're doing full rebuild, and they don't hire Michael Fuda. They're crazy.
Right, they're shopping Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They're shopping Darcy Kemper. None
of those moves are going to happen until they get.
I don't think Larson's getting moved. He likes it there. I think. Does he have a no move?
Larson has a no move, but according to Elliot Friedman, he would be amenable to work with them on a trade. Especially if we're talking about a situation where they're going to bottom out again. If they're going to bottom out again, then he doesn't have a chance to win the next few years, and he's in his late 20s.
Who's fitting in that deal though? I mean, that's $8.25 million for the next 7 years. Who's fitting in that money?
Yeah, it's a
team that strikes out on Alex Pietrangelo. Apparently,
yeah, there's people are making money for that. There's people. What ends up always happening is teams make money to try to sign somebody and don't sign.
I would feel bad for Tocchet if they're rebuilding because I don't think that's the kind of coach he wants to be.
Yeah, I think Tocchet could. Another thing. Here's a really. I'm going to throw an oddball rumor out before we get out of here. We got to get out of here. But here's an oddball rumor that I heard, and it's not that crazy to think about, but I've heard it from a couple people now, so I'm going to mention it. Is that Rod Brind'Amour could end up in Seattle very easily as their head coach? That there's a thought there that and obviously you got Francis as the GM, but that he just loves Rod Brind'Amour. Rod Brind'Amour's contract's ending, and it could be a situation where we see Brind'Amour as named as the Seattle coach sooner than later.
Well, God knows, the owner in Carolina is not going to pay him
right.
Adequate money. So if that's a consideration,
and I think they have a shirtless ultimate frisbee team out there.
Yeah, I just think so. Just keep an eye on it. Just sort of, and then also there's another thing that was.
Lavia, the Capitals received permission to talk to Laviolette.
Right.
That was reported,
which doesn't surprise us, given it's a veteran team and
every
team he goes to has a jump the year he gets there.
Yeah,
Jacques Martin is joining out. You guys know.
Jacques Martin's joining the Rangers, which is actually a good hiring. I mean,
good hire.
French Canadian. Obviously, if Lafreniere comes in, he has a comfort zone coming in. He's been good with prospects reportedly in the past, and he's made the Pittsburgh defense better than the sum of their overall parts.
He can yell at him in French.
Huh?
He can yell at him in French.
Yeah, so somebody's got to do it.
Listen, Tabernacle, we all know that. So
yeah. All right, well, keep an eye out for all that stuff. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. So we've got the big games tonight. Enjoy them. We might have a couple teams on their way to the conference finals when we talk tomorrow, or it could just get more complicated. I have a feeling that we're going to see a couple teams win tonight, though, and go to the conference finals. I think this whole thing is going to move quickly. We'll see what happens. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will